Welcome back to my 12 reviews for Christmas, and you're probably wondering about all the random shapes I have in front of you here. Well, there's a story behind that. You see, back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, Sega, at least their toy division Japan, ported over a interesting little collectible figurine slash trading card game called Bakugan. If the name sounds familiar, that's because the series has recently had a resurgence, although the mechanics work a little differently from what I've seen. The original one, which I remember when these first came out, were basically involving these little rolling marbles. Each one had a magnet inside, and each card, called a gate card, and again, this mechanic is no longer in the current version, although there's still little tiles with magnets in them. But those cards are called gate cards, and you roll little Bakugan onto them, and they stick on. If you get two of yours on a single card, you keep the card. Whereas if you get one of yours and one of your opponents, you'd have to fight them. So how do you fight them? Well, I don't have a gate card on me right now, but I do have this little demo tile that they released with some of the toys that some were made for game and some weren't. So these are of course game legal, so we're just gonna pop it on here. There is a metal panel in this. Yeah, when they land, they just pop open to a little monster. This is called the Neo Dragonoid. And you can see there is a few parts that we have to slip out. His horns and his little feet. You don't have to do this for the game, but it's for display purposes, really. And on each Bakugan, there's a number. That's its attack strength. And depending on the gate card, or any card in your hand that isn't a gate card, you can actually increase the power of your Bakugan and decrease the power of your opponent's Bakugan. Whoever had the highest attack power actually wins the combat, and you get the card. First of 3 gate cards actually won. So yeah, that's how the original game worked. And the original release of Bakugan these were actually a little smaller, but then when the series got popular, they were much larger. They started adding a whole lot of little gimmicks, like some would spring up, some would have a little die in the middle that would spin to change its attribute. And yeah, I should probably point out the attribute. Attributes are basically the different elements that they can belong to. This is the fire type. I don't remember what it was called off the top of my head. It has been a few years since I've played. Excuse me while I'm rambling here. Anyway, this particular set was the kind of the second series. The original releases like the proto release, and then there was the first editions. This is the second editions where they called it New Vestroia. I'm not going to go into the lore of the series because that would take just even longer. Regardless, the New Vestroias released these traps. They're similar to Bakugan, except that you don't roll them on the table like marbles. Instead, these are deployed after you deploy your monsters. And as you can see, let me see if I can find it. I'm trying to do this behind the camera. There is an attribute symbol on it. It can only be used by this attribute. And no, this is not the fire type, but this is all the same set. I'll explain why later. And when you put them on, there we go. They also pop into a little monster. And then there's a secondary attribute right inside of the creature. This actually will switch attributes from the original to this attribute, which helps with changing things up for gate cards. And of course, these also fold out into little monsters. If I could just hang on. It's kind of hard to figure out where all the panels are when you're trying to do this from behind the camera. These are little tiny things after all. Of course, you don't have to, as I said, you don't have to flip out the panels for gameplay, but they're more for display. Got another one right here. Little scorpion-like thing. And we just flip out his little claws here. like so. And then we have another one of these, kind of differently shaped than the previous one, especially with his rear legs looking a little flat rather than the almost saw-like. The Neo Dragonoid fell over. This one, I believe it goes this way, and it's kind of a little manta ray, and not really much we have to fold out of that one, really. And this one kind of folds out haphazardly. We have to lock his torso in place and start folding out legs. We got to fold out his horns, and we got a little bull here. Oh, and his tail. And then this is, I think it's like a cougar or something. I don't remember their official names for all these different traps. This guy also has a little opening jaw, but doesn't really do much. And of course, we gotta flip out the tail. Again, this isn't for the gameplay, this is more for display. You may notice that they are all the same color despite the fact they all have different elements. This was actually a box set called the Maxus Dragonoid. And the reason for that is this was the first Bakugan combiner. Yes, these things transform and they actually went into doing combiners. It's really simple to do the combination because there's all these little pegs that pop out. You also have to fold them up partially to get them into their combined mode. As you can see, I had to fold this partially back way, but leave the tail out and fold out the combination peg. We'll take the Dragonoid. You don't have to have the feet folded out for this, but I usually like to because it just gives it a little bit more of a platform to work on. So we're gonna leave him there. Now, this part, we're going to fold up the head, fold up this panel here, fold back the rest of the panels like so, and flip out the combination port, which goes right there. Starting to get a combination here. So next one we are going to do, fold the horns back up, fold the panel down. See, this is similar to the previous one. And we just pop that in like so. Now as for these, we flip them around like this, fold back these panels, fold out the combiner peg. I like to keep the symbol on the outside. And we do the same with this one. I gotta find where the joint is. And we have, oh, come on. We have his two arms. Just pop in like so. And then this isn't the full combination, as you can probably tell, because we still have this guy right here. There's two ways this guy can actually combine with the full gestalt. Is that we gotta first pull out these two pegs, and we fold the head and tail back in like so. Unfortunately, the tail has to go in a certain way or else it just won't go in properly. It's really tricky to get in, but next we fold these panels out like so, and then we can fit it into either arm like so to give him a giant grabby claw, which unfortunately just makes him a little forward heavy, so you gotta pose him in a certain way in order to make sure that all the weight is properly distributed. Unfortunately, there is very few poses you can do with that giant thing on that will actually stand up correctly. And I just realized I have this on the wrong peg. He's actually supposed to be put on the front peg, like so. Yeah, that's a lot better. Now his weight's a little bit more distributed, so let's see. Yeah, now we can hold up the arm, but there isn't really much posability there because it's all spring-loaded. Still interesting to look at, but we can also take this off. We fold these back in and turn them around. Yeah, I'm sorry I got this in the wrong port before. This has been a while since I've actually combined this thing, so please forgive my mistake. We pop out this little peg here, and I usually like to keep the symbol right side up. We fold the legs, these two legs back, and we just pop. Yeah, that thing is always going to pop back down if you try to do this. Gotta be very careful. Oh, come on. Yeah, kind of the thing here is that if you're manhandling this, parts are going to just pop right off. So we're sticking it in at an angle to make sure that the parts do not pop down. Let's get his lower torso back in here. And we're going to put it in the right peg this time, the front one. And looks like there we go. And now he has a little backpack. This was an interesting little experiment. It's not like you can actually do this combined mode for the tabletop game though. It's more for just if you wanted this as a collection. All these Bakugans can be used by, all these Bakugan traps can be used by different affinities, whereas this guy is basically the fire affinity. There was another combiner they made, and unlike this, because this was only available in a box set, the other ones were sold separately, so you could build up the combined mode from any different number of colors and factions. Although there was a Toys R Us exclusive primary colored one. I don't remember what that was called, but I was able to track down all the pieces back when I was first collecting these. Now then, when Bakugan progressed over the years, they started introducing more gimmicks. Like there was a gimmick line where the Bakugan had little ports on the back that you can attach pop-out weapons. And then there was the giant golems that had pop-out weapons as well that you had to use these little panels on to pop them out. I don't even remember how those things actually started being used in the game. I know they were game legal, but I don't know how they worked. And then there was this giant mech that you just rolled a Bakugan into and it popped open. And I think you could actually use that in game. I don't know. There was even a giant transforming dragon that used a Bakugan as the primary transformation system. Again, the parts of it were legal for use in the game, but the dragon itself wasn't. It just got so complicated. They added so many different mechanics, and I think it just got burned out after a while from just all the different things they try to add to the game just to make it more interesting. So now, with the reboot, we're just going back to the basic balls, the basic transforming marbles. But if you're really into the vintage stuff, tracking down one of these is pretty fun because, sure, you could use it in the game, but the combination of it all just looks really awesome, and I wouldn't mind using this for something other than just Bakugan because it looks like a giant mecha dragon I could probably use for a tabletop game or something. Anyway, that is my Maxus Dragonoid review, and this will not be the last time I'll be talking about Bakugan in this review series. So I hope to see you guys again next video. I'm sorry if I rambled on, but there's a lot of stuff I had to talk about Bakugan in order for you to understand what it was like when it first came out and what little I know of the series now. So, see you guys next video. Later.